trying to fix my hair so it doesn't look, it looks really greasy though, which is weird because I just washed it like yesterday. I don't know why it's so shiny. So I can't stand the shininess. Maybe I should lower the lights. Let me lower the lights because it looks too shiny. Come on. Nope. Late night after dark. Let's talk. The Let's Talk series after dark. At least it's a little bit more darker. It doesn't look so shiny. I might put my hair down. I'm sorry because I can't. This shininess is just bothering me. So, that looks like a hot mess. Anyways, so I usually don't wear my hair down, but I guess I will for the sake because I can't stand the shininess. But I don't know. This looks a little bit better. Whatever. I don't care. I shouldn't care so much about how my hair looks on a video. That's too vain and narcissistic. So that's not what this is about. What I'm talking about has nothing to do with hair and aesthetics and whatnot. So it is currently 11:52 p.m. and this is a vlog. I created this vlog again to talk about healing from trauma, dating, living life as a single woman in the wonderful state of Vermont that I'm in. I do have some cookies with me. I don't have any milk. My dog just decided to join the party right now. She decided to join the party. So yeah, let's begin, shall we? I had my Riesling. My glass is empty right now. I feel like when wasn't Hoda caught me and the other lady, what was her name? It was Hoda and someone else, where they used to drink wine on the Good Morning America show. Oh, so topic of discussion today. It's not gonna be about catfishing. It's gonna be about, and this is something that I've kind of been just trying to ponder over and think about as of late, which is dating straight. Oh, dating bi as a straight woman. Does that make sense? Or you're straight, but the men that you come across may be bi. Now, I don't know if this is me, but this has happened to me numerous times. My dog is like literally so intent. She's zeroed in, bro, on these cookies. She can't have chocolate. I know dogs can't have chocolate, so I'm not gonna eat them. I used to break apart the pieces. Well, like, I used to nibble on the chocolate parts and then try to take the... Hold on. These are really crispy. There we go. That's it. Dating bi as a straight woman. That sounds weird because that makes it think I'm dating. No. I take it back. So, what I've noticed lately in the dating pool, I've been, and I don't know what that says about me. Am I attracted to men who are more effeminate or metrosexual? I don't know. Because I also like men that are like alpha males, that you feel like they can protect you. You know, so I don't know. It's weird. You know. And I used to not like men that had a bunch of tattoos. Now I'm like, oh, I don't mind tattoos. Except that they're like all over in your face and all. My dog is literally hanging out, like right here. She's hanging out on the couch. It is late night hours. This is my time of the day. I am a night owl. I thrive better at night. I don't know why. Anyways, I'm gonna have one more cookie. This is a broken cookie. It's broken into pieces, so I will eat it. So let's discuss this, shall we? If I had like very like little sparkles or animation that could be like, you know, I would. I found one on Canva, but I just don't know how to edit videos and stuff. So But that's what would happen if I could do a little like meow, you know, like how people go like this to the thing, like when they're like, hey, boop, and then they come back. That's like a thing I've seen people do on video blogs or whatnot. So, but as of late, I have come across a lot of men on the dating apps who present as straight, but they're either bisexual or gay and curious about dating. And this is, and now you're like, but Ashley, do you ask? Like, how do you know? Trust me, woman's intuition. I hate to say gaydar, but like, it's just, I don't know, for some reason, it's easy for me to discern. And I think this is, my dog's paw is going to probably, what? What? It's easy for me to figure out this because some men are really good at hiding it, I will be honest. And I do think it is a little dishonest if you are going to go, shout out to any man who may be bi or gay. Nothing against, let me tell you, I am very pro LGBTQIA, like love is love. I do hold more conservative values when it comes to marriage. I do believe like in monogamy. I believe that like, I do believe in the sanctity of marriage. If you meet someone and they're your soulmate and you want to like do that with them and do life, right, as a couple, I do believe that people should respect and have reverence for marriage, matrimony, right? And religious in society, marriage is literally a sacrament, right? In olden times, we used to marry for like land and dowry and whatnot. Now and like it was a transactional experience. Now people marry for love, right? Unless you're like an undocumented person and you marry someone for like a green card. That's a whole different story. Side note, when I was a server, I actually met people who did that. Like legitimately in Miami, it was very popular. They would marry someone just for papers. They didn't love them. They just on paper they were like, yeah, whatever. But they didn't love each other. They lived like in separate houses. They had different lives, but they were married, right? I would never do that. This isn't like 90 Day Fiance. At least I don't treat my life that way. So let's dive deep. Get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Now, have I ever successfully, like, first of all, you might be like, but why do you talk about relationships? You're not an authority on them. I never said I was. I'm coming at it from the perspective that I was 32 when I started becoming sexually active. And I'm not kidding. If someone read my Tinder chats, though, they'd be like, there's no way this girl was at 32 started being like, they'd be like, she talks like she's, you know, and in the spiritual sense, I've lived many lives. I'm an old soul, and I'm a quick learner. So I catch on really quickly when it comes to anything. Like anything I don't know, I will like seek out resources to learn how to do it better. Because in my heart, like I want to be able to do something competently and effectively. Even sex, not to treat it so technical, but it's true. Like I want to be good at it. I don't want to be like, you know, like a little like bug, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'd rather be confident and, you know, and I think that shows in like the different interactions I've had with people. Can't say I'm a sex goddess, but you know, I want to feel comfortable so that when the time comes that I do actually meet somebody that is worthy of my time, I could be like, hey, you know, the sex is really good. Because to think about it, if you're going to marry someone, you're going to be with them for the rest of your life. Remember, I'm not going to give you chocolate. So you better like, you know, think about it. Like you're going to be with someone for the rest of your life till you die. You're going to share the same bed. You're going to say this. You're going to see the same genitalia. And it can get monotonous. And I get why some people want to do the polyamory thing because they're like, you know, we need novelty. We need to keep it spicy. Bro, then don't get married. Just like date and hook up with people. Like don't save all the people. Okay, for all the people out there who believe in monogamy and true traditional relationships and stuff, please save us the trouble of your bullshit. If you are into polyamory, not to be rude, but all the people who like do this shit, don't come into someone's life and waste their time and lie to them because there's people like me who genuinely believe in the sanctity of marriage, right? If it comes to that, who do believe in dating with intention. Now, have I kind of loosened the reins on that a bit? Yes, in terms of dating. I feel like on Tinder, they need to create a category for long-term fun instead of short-term fun. Because short-term fun literally can mean a one-night stand. It could mean so many different things, right? Depending on the context of the relationship of the person that you're doing that with, right? But I literally thought about saying, I'm like, they need to make a long-term fun category. Because what if you want to do, you don't want short-term fun, but you want long-term fun, right? But anyways, so dating, dating, dating as a straight person, dating by people as a straight person. Let's get into this. Is it wrong? No. Can it work? Maybe. You have to have a certain level of maturity. I think there has to be honest, open communication. Because for me, what I found out, and maybe I'm petting my dog. She's literally like right here. She's right here. Hello. For me personally, so here's what my take on it. I've been told, I forgot where it was. I saw a video on it, and I've read or heard that sex between two men is a lot riskier than sex between a man and a woman. Super conservative people will debate and say, well, anyways, there's only, which I agree, there's two sexes, male and female, but gender, that's a whole another discussion, right? You get into trans, bi, pansexual, non-binary, whatever, and people, I can't speak to the trans experience, and I feel my heart breaks for people like that, because there's literally people who antagonize people because of their, like I said, I'm straight, so would I ever date someone who's trans? No. Would I ever date someone like a woman? No. But I feel for these people because they go through, now it's a lot more socially acceptable. Being queer, gay, bi, whatever, it's so much more socially acceptable. There's people there's something called, I learned, a lavender marriage, which is kind of good. I'm bringing this up. A lavender marriage, I didn't know this term until recently when I was on Instagram. It's basically when, like, a straight woman marries a gay man, or on the flip side, a straight man marries a gay woman. That's what it's basically. It's a gender bending kind of situation. Now, are there benefits to that? I mean, you could, for taxes, yeah, you can do a domestic partnership or a civil union or something, and maybe, I don't really know what the benefits are to marriage, to be honest. I really don't know. I just know that when you get a certificate, you get a legal certificate, and there's like tax benefits or something. I don't really know much else besides that. But there was a guy I was watching, he came across my feed on Instagram, and it basically said, like, he was giving all the reasons for, because he was basically like, you women, like, you tolerate bullshit from, he was a gay man, right? Openly gay. And he said, you women, you let men treat you like shit. They use you for your bodies. Imagine marrying a gay man, and we could go, imagine like nights where we sit on the couch and we talk about our favorite shows, and you don't have to worry about, a man's smelly feet or poor hygiene skills, or maybe cheating or whatever, because, we'll be like besties. And, he was talking about having like cooking, like parties and hosting events, like different, like, he made it sound lovely. But to me, I'm like, but then what about lovemaking? What about the romance? What about the intimacy and all that? Because, and then he actually said, he's like, he mentioned, he's like, and if you want a baby, we can make a baby. There's no issue like that, Um, it's a very liberal concept. I'm going to be honest, super liberal concept. Now, while I say I'm super liberal, I kind of fall in the middle. I will say I'm kind of the person, maybe people can go, if anyone really watches this video, they're going to be like, oh my God, she's too opinionated. Do I believe that? I mean, here's the thing. I do believe people who are trans, gay, queer, like, that's who you are. That's what you identify as. That's okay. Now, when you're a child developing your identity, and you see, like, if you have someone dressed in drag come into a preschool, it's going to kind of make the kids go, what the heck? So I think maybe at a certain age that's appropriate. You know, if you're like, I don't know, if you're not even eighth grade, maybe high school, like someone, if you want to have a discussion about that kind of stuff, because in adolescence, you're forming your sense of self, right? Your brain is a little bit more further developed because child development dictates. Cognitive develop, you're more prone to abstract thinking. Your ego, which is the ability to reflect back on your thoughts and what the things you think and your experiences, that's getting developed, right? But children, I don't think that would be that would be something. Yeah. So, and that's coming from like a psychological child development perspective. Um, but really, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is it kind of goes into the discussion together because as a woman, I am, I can't say there's a thing on Tinder and on the apps where, especially Tinder, it says open to exploring. So this is the idea that you kind of have a very fluid, gender fluid. Also, I think it pertains more to polyamory and having multiple relationships and stuff. That I kind of, I've considered it, but I go, what are my standards? What do I want in a person? And I feel bad when I match with someone, I literally interrogate. I try to make it in a playful sense, but I like almost interrogate them. I'm like, do you do this? Do you do that? And any man might be okay with it, but like some people might be like, oh my God, you know, especially if they just want to have like a hookup or whatever. But to me, if I want to have a hookup, I want to have it with somebody that they're clean, they're honest, they're forthright. It's how to say, is it mutually exclusive for the sense that we're both in agreement or accordance with one another, you know, and our values and our beliefs and stuff like that. That's why I wish on Tinder they literally put long-term fun, because short-term fun, it's like, you know, it makes you look like a whore. Like, oh, you just want to hook up. Um, you know, because to be honest, right now, that I would love a relationship with somebody, but honestly, I don't even think some of the, and I don't want to put that energy out there, but some of these men, bro, like, I need to do like a PSA for like all, like step up to the plate on behalf of all women who are like seeking not so much a godly man. It's not so much about religion. It's just like someone that has morals and scruples and who's virtuous, you know. Um, and I feel like that's gone by the wayside. Um, and the level of maturity of some of these men, because I look at their ages, some of them are 37, they're 27. I mean, it's not like they're 15, you know, like they're in high school. These are grown men with jobs, right? Steady incomes. And they're out here acting like, you know, this is eighth grade, you know, tomfoolery, basically. Um, but getting back to this idea of dating, I don't know if anyone else has gone through this, but for me, I've noticed this trend a lot where it's also, let me preface this. I do read cards. And if you're someone that's like, oh, I don't read cards, it's so weird, you're like a witch. And I'm like, no, come meet me and I'll prove you wrong, which I don't have to prove anything to anybody. But, no, I don't have a pentagram. I don't have a pendulum. Um, so yeah. Um, but I am a card reader. I guess you would say an intuitive card reader. And it's hard when you date and you're an intuitive because you can pick up on that which is not seen, right, but felt. So I'm able to, like, if someone says, yeah, I'm straight, and I'm like, well, why do I get these vibes that you're gay or like queer, and you lie to me? And it's sad. This is the really sad part too, because some men I have matched with, I can't really say I dated, but we did hook up. And it's sad because some of them were really smart, charismatic, kind, um, intelligent people who I really had a good connection with. And I don't know if that speaks to me and says, am I more accepting of a gender fluid or gender bending relationship? I don't know. Is it to say, will I ever be able to date someone who's like the total alpha male, like like Optimus Prime extraordinaire, right? I don't know. I think there needs to be this gentle balance of not necessarily hyper masculinity, but this quiet, understated confidence which I have another video I haven't posted yet. I might re-record it because it was kind of all over the place. But talking about divine masculinity, which is someone who basically it's someone who steps up to the plate. They're a gentleman, they're respectful, they're chivalrous, they're not vain, they're not narcissistic, they know what they want, they take initiative, they go after it, that kind of thing. And the same thing could be said for a divine feminine who's in her divine feminine energy and has standards, doesn't accept BS or bullshit from anybody, right? Who knows herself, who carries herself with propriety and grace, right? And also exudes maybe that also quiet, understated confidence that lends itself to someone maybe not being so sexually provocative, but maybe more demure. Because a lot of women, and I said this in my Divine Feminine Masculine video, they will use their sex appeal to manipulate and hook a man. And this is a female saying this, someone who became sexually active later on in life. And that's sad to me. And on the same accord, a man can do that too, right? The men that have, and it's funny because for the first time, I never thought, let me tell you, I'm not usually one. The men that have like the ab pics, I'm not usually big on that. Like if they're half naked and they're like, psh. But one man I recently swiped on, I was like, are we matched? And this is really recent, right? Good conversation. I was like, bro, this guy's like really like, he talks, he's responsive. He said he was straight. He said he wasn't married. He said he didn't have kids. And then I pull cards on the dude, and this stuff comes out, and it says that he's polyamorous, and he's cheating, he's unavailable, and then he was lying to me, and he was a player, or whatever. And I'm like, bro. And I know you're going to be like, Ashley, you can't keep using cards to go about your relationships. Well, let me tell you something. I am a very kind soul, and I am very empathic. And I give people the benefit of the doubt. And I always see the good in people. So I feel like God, and if you're not someone who believes in God, then whatever. I feel like I was bestowed this gift of, you can call it psychic discernment, you can call it spiritual discernment, whatever you want to call it. Third eye, awakening, whatever, if you're into spirituality. I call it like psychic ability, intuition, whatever. And if you say, but you can't keep using cards to do that, thank God I do, because I would have maybe been taken for a ride. I would have been, God forbid, I mean, there's women who do, like, not to say that Tinder is a trafficking playground, but like, there's people who do get in probably scary situations. And that's why I think Tinder, they have a disclaimer about safety and stuff like that. And Bumble, I know Bumble's very good about that. They're very good about looking out for come here, baby, their members' safety, right? And I did recently, actually, I said, you know what, I'm going to invest in the subscription thing for like a week or whatever. I was like, why not? Hi, baby. Hopefully I start working soon so I can pay it off. I can't add any more debt. And it's frustrating because I just got an email from Ipsy and they sent me a thing and now I'm like, damn it. And it's a really cute, anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, but, once I start talking about something and then I lose focus, and then I'm going to come back to what I was saying. But yeah, it's frustrating. And like I said, if you're someone who's like, well, you can't use cards to keep figuring out. And I go, you know what? Thank God, because I'm the kind of person, I'm like, when someone tells me something, I take it at face value. I would never think that a guy would be like really truly married and has children and is cheating on their wife and is living a double life. I mean, like, no one would think that, right? You don't, because you're like, if you're like me, you think traditionally, you think conventionally. So, yeah, so that was my most recent experience. And if one day, if this is like a dating vlog where I'm going to track, like, I'm going to be like, yay, if I finally meet someone, I'm like, yay, they're responsive, they're single, they're straight, but I have yet to meet someone. But maybe one day. I'm trying to put good vibes out there, so like, I don't know. That's just the way I'm trying to put good vibes, so I meet honest people, and I appreciate the lessons though. I'm like, thank you God for the lessons, or my higher self, whoever that is, but yeah, let me talking about dating as a straight woman, dating men that are queer. If anyone else has done it, please let me know, because I'm curious to know. And it's funny, I have my little sticker here of the two little people. There's like a cute little sticker that I did when I went to like a therapy session in New Jersey for this. It was called Black Falls Therapy. They were really great. They were a good therapy service. So it was like a workshop, a 1 day workshop, and I drove from Virginia actually to kind of to Philly, and then from Philly I took the car over to the therapy thing. But anyways, um, it's so funny. There's a rainbow here. um, and so yeah, I will say that I can't really speak to saying because whether it would work or not. So and I want to reference, there's a TV show called Jane the Virgin, and I grew up watching it. It was like one of my favorite shows. Gina Rodriguez was in it. Justin Baldoni was in it. Um, Brett Dyer, I think, was in it. Um, and in it, she has this, like, she reconnects with someone from her past named Adam, who was like a comic strip or graphic designer or something. And I think he was her like first love or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think he broke her heart because he decided he wanted to date someone else. Um, so so it goes. He makes a reappearance back in her life at whatever age she is, 27, 26, 28. Um, I forgot how they reconnect exactly, but they do. And he then reveals to her that he's bisexual. And then in true Jane fashion, I'm like, bro, this character is like literally. So I always say I'm like basically Rory Gilmore mixed with Jess from New Girl, or Jessica Day from New Girl, and Jane from Jane the Virgin. Like that is like literally. I don't look like them, but I their essence and their being is very much. That's how I am. So yeah, and so basically, they have like a little. I can't remember what happened. This was, if you've never seen Jane the Virgin, then spoiler, don't listen to me speak, because I'm going to reveal some stuff. So Brett Dyer, who the character Michael, he passes away in the show, and that's her husband, right? And he's a police officer, and he has a heart attack. Um, and this was after. So they met on their 21st birthday party, her 21st birthday party. There's a house call, and he comes, and then like it's really cute. It's such a cute show. I love that show. I rewatched it again when it came back on Netflix, and now it's gone. But anyways, so yeah, so in the interim, I can't remember if Michael had passed away or not, but she ends up dating Adam, and then he discloses to her that he is bi. He's not gay, he's bi. So that means that he goes both ways. He dates both men and women. Um, and so I'll never forget that in the episode, they do a little vignette where they're like out to dinner or lunch or something, and she has a little mind blurb where she like goes off into her imagination, and she imagines the guy Adam flirting with the waiter. So basically the waiter, who's a man, flirts, like gives these like, flirtatious glances to the guy. And then so she's thinking in her mind, oh my God, he's flirting with him. And she was just like, and then she started imagining herself, if there was a girl waiter, she's like, oh, but does that mean that she's queer because she started to accept him dating men or whatever? It was just interesting. And I sat there and I was like, bro, and I was actually, when I started rewatching it, I was living in Virginia at the time. And there was a guy who I kind of questioned his sexuality. And I said to me, I'm like, why am I attracting these men who have, I don't know if it's like effeminate qualities, but I will say though that the ones that I've surmised might have been bi, I don't know what it is. If they're more emotionally sensitive, they, because there is a difference like between men that are like the alpha male, right? I will say some men that are alpha male do not know how to touch a woman's heart. They don't know how to relate to a woman. In fact, some men, I think, actually just think women are subservient, or are just should be used for procreation. I'm talking like in the most traditional sense, right? That the woman is strictly to make babies, and it's very, very Handmaid's Tale type of esque situation. On the flip side, you have men who may be queer, who do respect women, who do see them not just as things or properties to own or to use for sex, but they actually value them in their friendship and their company. It's like, it's interesting. So for me, it's one thing I found that's been difficult is that there's been men who literally even slept with or dated with in the past, who they told me they were straight, but very clearly they were not. And that hurt me because some of them I actually did have like a good connection with. And, there was good conversation, there was rapport back and forth. And it was frustrating because it's like, had a guy been honest, and been upfront and been like, yeah, I've dated men, I wouldn't, honestly, this sounds crazy. And maybe you're like, if you're super conservative, you're like, oh my God, she's crazy. If I met somebody and I had a really good rapport with them and he was honest, he was kind, he had integrity, and maybe, yeah, he was exploring his sexuality and he realized, hey, maybe, let me see what it's like to date a man, I wouldn't be opposed to actually trying that. But the thing is, here's the thing, the guys that I've matched with, they haven't been that forthright, and they haven't been, unless they're, I mean, they could be in the closet. That's another thing. I do my cards and sometimes I go, oh, maybe they were in the closet and they weren't, they haven't come out. So maybe I was predicting future energy. So that's what's frustrating too, is that when you're an intuitive and a card reader, you pick up on stuff that like other people may not, they might not divulge or be ready for. So, but I will say it has been a bit challenging because, these men, you match with them and you have this really great rapport and chemistry and then passion and whatnot. And I know that they're attracted to me because they've, I've been there. I was in the situation, and things happen, like, genitalia goes up, things get heated, whatever. So I know they're not faking it, right? But it's frustrating because let me tell you, there's something, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, there is nothing more disgusting than someone that's a liar. To me, at least. When someone lies, I can't even look at them the same way. I don't care how good looking, how sexy, how attractive a man is. And let me tell you, I've had to make the hard decisions where I've literally cut people off. Like just recently, I decided to go, nope. And that there was a guy I literally was having such a good conversation with, like, and I was going to see him this weekend, just like kind of last weekend. It's the same thing. The same thing happened. And then I find out, later on that they're cheating and this is, mind you, through psychic readings and stuff. If a man ever says they travel a lot, ladies, be mindful. Don't, unless they're like a super secret spy, and they travel the world, because that's what I'm assuming spies do. They go, they live a very nomadic lifestyle. But if they're not a super secret spy, then, and he's like, yeah, I travel here and there, that is a very telltale sign that they are either looking to have a fling or they're cheating and they're having an affair. Because usually, typically, a man is stationary, they're in one place. Also, too, if they don't give you their cell phone number and they want to talk to you through an app, like, on like a third party app or on Instagram or Facebook Messenger or something like that, be mindful. And always vet the person before. Always do like I try to do like a video chat thing where I like talk to them and, I vet them beforehand. But yeah, I haven't, so there was one guy when I did my recent video on the dating apps, and no one's, I don't think, seen that, which is interesting. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll just put it out to the ethers. But I did come across, there was one guy in his profile, he literally put that he was bisexual. And he looked pretty cool. He was like, he played guitar, he looked like he had a really well-rounded life, and he was attractive, he was cute. I think he lived too far, so I didn't swipe right, but I would have. And then later that, I used to be very like, oh, I don't want to date anyone that's queer or whatever. But now I'm at this point where, like, if a man who's straight can't step up to the plate, that rhymes. If a man that's straight can't step up, then I'm going to possibly consider, I just realized I'm rhyming, then I would possibly consider someone queer to date. And not a woman, not women. I would say, a man. Because, and not a gay man, I mean like a guy who's attracted to women and maybe men, which sounds really crazy, especially like if you're in Catholic religion, you're like, oh my goodness, Papa Dios, Santa Maria, like no. And I say this because like I really do think like there's been guys that I've dated in the past that they didn't disclose to me that they were bi or whatever, and it's sad because I had a really good connection with some people, and I had to let them go because I'm not gonna, like, I don't care how good of a rapport I have with you. If you lie to me, it's over. Like, because the thing is, one lie, that one white lie will turn into something so big. You know, because if you think about it, if someone has the propensity to lie to somebody, right? You know, and this is where psychology comes in, which I love psychology. That person, think about it, when we make a decision day to day, we choose, okay, I'm going to wear these shoes, I'm going to wear my hair, you know, in this fashion, I'm going to buy this wine, I'm going to buy these cookies. There's conscious decision making happening in these processes, right? Think about from a liar's perspective, they have to distort the reality or the image or the message that they're going to impart to someone else in order for them, for that, their audience, whoever it is, a person, thing, whatever, boss, for them, that person to see it their way. So there's there's strategic thinking that goes into that, right? So if you're dating someone and the guy or girl, whoever it is, lies to you, that's not just like a flippant, like, oh, whatever. Some people, I will say, so these are the people you have to look out for. Um, the master manipulators, the chronic liars or serial daters, right? They know exactly like all the right things to say. They tell you what you want to hear. And then if you corner them or if you call them out on something, they'll either A, project their insecurities onto you or deflect the blame, right? And they won't take accountability for their actions, or they'll make you question the reality. They'll gaslight you. And that's narcissistic abuse. And I've been there. I was a victim of that. Um, and I think that goes unnoticed a lot more than we think. So, in that token, we need to, either as men or women, whoever's watching this, we need to keep with us an arsenal of psychological coping mechanisms and defense tactics, because unfortunately we live in this day and age where it is a lot easier to access sex, right? It is a lot easier to engage in if God forbid you're someone that believes in affairs, to engage in an affair. There's a website called Ashley Madison, I think, .com. There was a whole expose on it, either on 2020 or Dateline. So, and I think if we are going to be cosmically conscious people, or cognizant people, aware of our, like, we have self-awareness, we have maturity, we owe it to ourselves to not settle for these things that we know that we don't deserve. Because more often than not, what I've noticed, whether it's in like working relationships or friendships, I've noticed friends, and this is true, like I've been friends with coworkers and stuff that I have had a good relationship with or rapport with, they will settle for being with someone out of loneliness, finances, desperation. And let me tell you, it could be, when I say my finance, it's funny I say bikini bottom, but it's true. I'm trying to make something that's kind of sad or whatever into a lighthearted situation. So when I say my finances are in the pits, like bikini bottom, they are bikini bottom. And I could very easily, if I wanted to, sell my body on a pornographic or like dating site, or I don't even know if is OnlyFans a dating site. I don't even know, but I could basically solicit sexual favors, like, or I offer, is that solicit? What's the word? Illicit or solicit? Like when you offer something, I could basically solicit sexual favors in lieu of compensation if I wanted to, because I'm a woman. You know, I could flap my eyes and be like, woo, you know, titties, whatever, woo. And I love lingerie, but I'm not going to do that because I have self-respect, and I don't want to veer off the topic of what I was talking about. But this goes along the lines of having integrity, doing the right thing, right, and avoiding situations with people who are narcissists and master manipulators, because literally they in fact, I think some narcissists and stuff, they literally single-handedly pick out the people who they know are more, I don't know if it's psychologically vulnerable or dismissive or permissive, but you know, I think also too is with people that are kind, what I've noticed for me is that I also think, and this might sound kind of scary, I also think too, I've kind of been sexually groomed by people for certain things. So I'm trying to navigate um, I'm trying to navigate dating from a mature, spiritually conscious or cosmically conscious perspective, because I really do think some people, and they'll do that. Unfortunately, we live in a world, and I don't think Tinder and Bumble they don't have like the Bumble police, you know, like they can't like filter out all the bad seeds and weeds and be like, no, this is a bad person, this is a good person, right? And plus, there's bots too, there's scammers who do that too, and it's really scary. So you have to be very careful. But I feel like if you're someone who leads your life with integrity, right? If you were raised with propriety and you know, you want to enjoy, and I'm not, and let me tell you, this is coming from someone I have fought. There's a song, hard fought hallelujah. I was somebody who, and I'll even put it out, I'm talking about, if we want to talk about queer stuff, I used to be because again, I was raised Catholic. So in the Catholic Church, masturbation, homosexuality, premarital sex, these are all things that are frowned down upon completely. You get a religious, you go to religious class, which I actually loved religion class, to be honest. When I was in middle school, I loved getting, they had Jesus on the front, you know, they had Jesus and the apostles, and I used to contact paper the book. I was like, I love this. I love theology. I love studying the Bible. I was a nerd, and I still kind of am. But in it, I'll never forget, it said masturbation, premarital sex, and homosexuality were frowned down upon. And I even was scared sometimes, and this is very vulnerable of me. I've never said this to anybody. I used to be scared to be around women that were gay because I was like, oh my God, are they going to like me? But I don't want to be liked. And I was like, oh my God, is that homophobic? And then I went to art school, and I learned that it's not a sin for people to be gay. It's not something, they didn't choose that. And I was raised, which later on I didn't know this. There were two women in my life who I considered almost like they were integral to my growth in my childhood, and they were partners. And I didn't know this until I was in my like late 20s, because I didn't, you know, I just saw them as like family. I didn't look at them as like gay women. Um, so, but here's the clincher. Whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever, honesty and authenticity is paramount. And I feel like because we live in this not glass colored, we live in this world where, especially with dating apps, it's so easy to adjust your persona, especially an online persona, to make yourself look a certain way. Because let's face it, right? Like for me, I made my little YouTube channel. I chose a little like cute pink Giphy or an image. I call it Giphy, but it's a, you know, a little cupcake thingy or rainbow or whatever. And it says like, I forgot, it's something about overcoming something, adversity or whatever. But I knew the aesthetic. I knew, and there's strategic thinking in that. Like I choose, okay, for the NSFW series, I don't want to be too risque or whatever, but I wanted to have this vibe of romance and sensuality. When I did the little let's talk thing, I put the cute little plaid thingy because it looks cute. It's like a gingham plaid thingy, little theme. When I do Bonnie's vlogs and stuff, I want them to be very cheerful because that's who I am, and I wanted a channel to, um, I guess, exemplify that or demonstrate that, right? In the same token, it's like when people go online, they're exuding a specific persona and personality and image, right? And if you're someone who lives a virtuous life, right? And this is where it gets hard. You expect people to offer the same sincerity and authenticity and integrity that you put outwardly, right? Overtly. So when someone doesn't match those expectations, there's a lot of, I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance, but there's a lot of mental like jumping a hoop and gymnastics that, especially for me, I've gotten a lot of better about. And now I just go, okay, like the quote that Maya Angelou says, she says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. That is like something that I go, and it's hard because let me tell you, like I literally, and this is where boundaries come in, because I could have, sorry if this sounds really crass, and I don't want to curse. I need to have like a swear jar. So because I used to be very classy and I never used to swear, and now I'm like, fuck this. But I basically had plans to meet up with someone that I did meet on Tinder Very cute guy, again, very handsome. I was all like, oh my God, I'm gonna run my fingers through this guy's hair. It was gonna get very steamy, and I'm not gonna give the details, but you know, I was very attracted to him. And then I find out these things, I do my reading, and I'm like, and once you find out that someone lies, it is the most unattractive quality, because you can be the richest man, or if you're a man seeking a woman, you might meet the most stunning, sexy Instagram influencer with the moo shoes. I don't know what, I don't really know moo shoes. Like, I just know, I call them the moo shoes because I'm not into luxury stuff. I shop at like TJ. Even if I was sick rich, I still wouldn't shop like at the Moo Valentino store, because I like my Marshalls, I like my Home Goods, I like my TJ Maxx, and that's it. But anyways, like, you can meet the most gorgeous woman, but if she's vile, repulsive, judgmental, you wouldn't want to date her, right? You'd want to date someone who's down to earth, kind, caring, loving, maybe, you know, like describing me. I'm like, it's like a PSA for me. It's like, date me. But no, it's true though. Like, on the same respect for men, I need to do, like, I feel like I should do a video on like how Matthew Hussey, who's a dating coach for women, I think he helps men too. I feel like maybe I need to make a channel specifically to help men date. Like, if you are someone, like, let's say you're not the typical man, right? And you're finding it hard to attract the right woman, right? Or you're meeting people like how I am. You're meeting like 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 the trash bin of you know, like the, I don't want to call them the trash bins because, you know, we all matter and stuff, but like, man, like when someone lies, it's so ugly, you know. And when someone's abusive or divisive and manipulative, it just, and it's sad because we're all grown ass men and women, you know. And what I was going to say is, like, if I was settling, I could have gotten fucked this weekend. I could have gotten laid, I could have had sex, my vagina would have been like, yay. Not that my vagina would do that, but, you know, it would be very happy because, you know, sex is a very, like, stress relieving thing. And, you know, to be touched and caressed a certain way, it feels so good. Like, now I understand now why people like sex. I didn't get it before because I wasn't, like, horny. My hormones didn't kick in until later. But now I know, like, and also you don't have to love each other to make love to somebody. But I do think, like, you know, the more, how do I say, the more of a connection you have with somebody, the better, to me, I think the better the sexual encounter will be. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. And then if you don't, then you're just like a little bunny rabbit that likes to do, you know? So, and trust me, I've had the do sex. It was not fun. And it kind of hurt because the guy was not respectful of my body. And I think he cared more about his pleasure than mine. And he really cared about the size of his genitalia too. He was very adamant about that. Um, and I think I was treated more like a plaything than a person. So be mindful of the people who you engage with because, yeah. Um, Luckily for me, I'm very resilient and I'm emotionally intelligent, so I can bounce back from that really easily. But to save yourself time, you know, just, yeah, vet the person before. But going back to what I was saying, I could have, like I said, I could have had a date. I probably could have been wined and dined too, because the dude said that he's into like dinners, and I literally, I'm so easygoing. I tell the people, let's go to the China buffet. Not that it's nothing bad with the China buffet, but like, I love Chinese food, bro. Like, I love fried rice. I love the General Chow sauce. Like, I'm not about being, like, I will say I like wine, but I don't need the whole, like, fanfare of, like, hello. I was a server in fine dining. I don't need, you know, and if I ever do get pampered like that, I'll feel very blessed and grateful for it, but I don't really need it to be happy. I care more about, I think, the company and the person I'm with versus, like, the ambiance and stuff. Mind you, though, I don't, like, you're gonna be like, well, so are you okay with going to, like, a Wendy's or, like, a McDonald's? And I'm like, hey, I once saw a guy on TikTok. He was actually living in his car, I think, or a truck, and he met a girl on his own volition. He was choosing to live in a truck. He met a girl who, on the Tinder app, I think, Tinder or Bumble, I don't remember, Hinge, and they actually met up at a McDonald's, and they had a lovely date. I'm like, hey, why the fuck not? You know, you're getting, like, it's cheap, it's yummy, even though I know McDonald's is probably the best for you, but, you know, get a little Happy Meal, if a dude brought me, like, I don't know. I'm weird. If a guy brought me like an M&M McFlurry, I would be the happiest camper. And I was gonna say something crude. I was gonna be like panties will drop. But for me, I don't know. I'm very low key. Like I don't need a lot to be happy. Plus, if I wanted to wine and dine, I could wine and dine myself. I'll buy a filet mignon. I'll put it in the pan, do the butter, boop, 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 some sage, rosemary, boop. You know, filet mignon a la Ruth Chris style. They didn't use sage though. They used a lot of butter. So I'm not really concerned about that. But my point is that I could have gone through with a date with this person, and I decided not to, and I deleted him because I go, I'm not going to be played. I'm not going to be, and it's sad because I don't know if he was queer or whatever. I mean, it kind of, I wondered, I wonder everyone that I match with now. I'm like, are they really like, are they straight? Um, but what's sad for them is that they're going to lose out on a partnership with me because they lied to me. Because the lie took precedence over the authenticity. So my thing is, here's my thing. If you're a man watching this, which I don't know what man's gonna ever watch my channel, but go figure. It really was actually geared more towards women because I wanted to help other women heal from narcissistic abuse and trauma and stuff like that. Because it happens. It happens more often than not. How many girls go to college and then they get raped or gang raped at a fraternity and everyone turns a blind eye to it, and then she feels shameful or sinful for like even having gone through with it when really she was a victim of narcissism and abuse. So not to say I was ever raped or anything like that. Sexually groomed, possibly, but raped, no. Sexually trafficked, I don't know, that's up for debate, possibly. um and it's crazy I can say that with like such a straight face or like without breaking down into tears, but I've been really, really resilient for like a long time. um so anyways, my point is that if you are a man watching this by chance, if you are, or even a woman, like, be honest and open about, especially if you're going to get, especially if you're going to engage with someone in a sexual manner, please do not shy. It will show such a lack of respect on the other person's part if they choose not to speak about their sexual health or their sexual past, and history. And now, is sexual orientation something that, now you might say, oh, but that's too personal if someone asks me about my sexual orientation. Well, not really, right? If you're like dating, when we're dating someone, attraction is a part of that, right? We all have our I'm gonna say our idiosyncrasies, but we have our preferences, we have our likes, and fortunately for the LGBTQIA queer community, it is a lot more socially acceptable than it was before. If you were gay, you'd be burned at the stake probably years ago, like they did with the witches. If you A really good depiction of this is the musical Rent, right? So when Jonathan Larson wrote Rent, it was set in the 80s, and this was when I think the AIDS pandemic, I don't know if Freddie Mercury was, right? Yeah, probably. Um, in the show, there is a trans person, a transsexual. Angel Dumont Trunard, the character of Angel Dumont Trunard, is a man, but he dresses as a woman, and he's in a committed relationship with another man who happens to be black. Talk about the most, right? If you're someone who's very conservative, you're like, oh my god, it's so scandalous. You're like, whatever, love is love, deal with it. Um, you know, um, so that's, I think, that authenticity and vulnerability that, at that time, I'm not sure if being queer was more acceptable, but at that time, I'm not sure. I would have to research that. And mind you, I studied sociology, and gender equality or gender norms, or the sociology of gender was something that I studied, and the psychology of it too in my master's. But I do think that it's a lot more socially acceptable than it was before. A lot of people that are, and mind you, I feel for people that are gay or closeted, because it's hard, right? Think about how hard it is, especially if you grew up in a family where, let's say, that's like frowned down upon, right? Um, that's hard for a person who's gay to be like, oh, I like men, if you're a man, or if you're a woman, oh, I like women, right? Like that would be, or even more gender bending if you tell someone, oh, I like both, like, whoa. Or there's also, I think, forgive me because I don't know, I feel like I should know this, because like I like to be objective with things. And I know that there's like pansexuality. I still don't really understand what non-binary. I think that means you don't. I think non-binary means you don't identify with a specific gender. I think pansexual means sexual attraction to all things, but non-binary is a gender identity, and pansexual is sexual preference, I think. But forgive me if I get it wrong. So if you identify with that group, I'm sorry. I'm not an authority on it. I'm just giving a basic rudimentary understanding from where I'm coming from. And I want to be respectful of all genders. Even though I will say I do kind of believe in the two sexes, like male, female. I think gender is not synonymous with sex. Just want to say that. Biological sex is different from gender. Gender is what you identify as consciously, right? Cognitively. Sex is what I think is your biological sex. That's just my opinion. And I don't want people don't need to adopt that in the world, but that's just the way I see it. Because there's a lot of, I think, ambiguity and this like overlap between the two. But anyways, what was I going to say? Yes, so Rent, that's a really good depiction of that. But now it's a lot more socially acceptable. So relationships, when you, that would be such a good study to see how relationships have changed. I do think in a very analytical sense. As floofy and bubbly as I can be, I'm always someone, I've been always driven in like by like research and stuff. It's always like piqued my curiosity. So anyways, but you think about it, it's like I wonder if you study the way that relationships and like gender norms have transformed, right? And also I think it's dependent upon region too, right? Like you talk about if you go to like the super south, right? Like not like New Orleans, because New Orleans it's free reign with everybody, but like if you go to like South Carolina or even parts of North Carolina, I bet you homosexuality and stuff in some parts would probably be frowned down upon. But anyways, not to get too much into that, right? Because that could be a whole sociological discussion, which I'm not going to get into. But this is more about dating and, is it possible for a woman, like I'm straight, would it be possible to have a successful relationship with somebody who's queer or bi? I haven't done it yet, so I can't really say yes or no. It's just been something that's been on my mind because I'm like, I feel like I've encountered men who were bi in the past and they weren't honest with me. And it's sad, like I said, because they were intelligent men, ambitious, self-motivated, took initiative, worldly, very, very, meaning like they were cultured, they were sophisticated, they weren't like close-minded, right? They weren't provincial in their thinking or narrow-minded. They were objective. And so I don't know, a part of me is like I really wondered. I mean, ideally when I put my my bucket list or my wish list for a relationship, I did put, straight. I always, and it's so funny, like my growing up, so a little vulnerable moment, honest moment, right? My ideal guy, I used to love, like, so the Abercrombie and Fitch store, right? Washboard abs, flippy do surfer hairdo with like the dirty blonde, like with the come hither eyes, and then the girls were standing over like, like, and they're like with their topless thing and their hair was covering their boobs. And like, they looked so cool, right? And I was like, oh my God, I would so love to date a man like that, just this cool, calm, like, and then there was the models that were like brown hair, like super like the guy that you picture that's a jock on the football team, like in college. Kind of like, okay, perfect, like a Channing Tatum, but Channing Tatum has kind of like a crew cut, but kind of like that, like a Channing Tatum of, oh no, the other guys, who are the Amell brothers. There's the guy who plays Arrow, the superhero, Stephen Amell and the other Amell dude, that kind of look, right? And there was another guy on, oh my God, what was his name? He was on Sunny with a Chance, which was the show with Demi Lovato. He was really cute too. He had like that's the kind of guy, like One Tree Hill, Chad Michael Murray, the other guy who played opposite of him. Those were the type of dudes that I used to like. And now I'm kind of like, I don't even really know. Honestly, I go by like, at this point, I'm like, if you're not a catfish, if you're not married, that's all I go by now. I'm like, can they actually hold a conversation? And if they can't, I have no time for it. I'm just like, boop. delete. I'm like, I don't have time for you. You're in your late 20s. You can't hold a conversation. You lack maturity. Boop. You know, you spend more time getting high, smoking weed, and boop. You know, it's like someone who's intelligent, capable, kind, honest, mature, leads a pretty virtuous life, right? Kind of physically active, no smoking. I can't stand smoking. Like, I just can't. I know some people are trying to quit, but I can't. Um, and I used to say, you know, and I say straight. That was my criteria, right? Um, so now it's kind of shifted where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I've kind of loosened up the reins a little bit. Will I ever gravitate towards polyamory? Probably not. I know people will probably be like, oh my God, just go with like the times, do it. And I'm like, no. I know open marriages and stuff like that are very prevalent nowadays. I think it's Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. They have an open marriage and they talk about it. But for me, I was raised like I'd want to be with like one person, and I don't want to be like the second wife or the third wife in the whatever, or the mistress or the whatever, because I just think that could be so wonky and murky. But talking about and if here's my thing, if I were to ever do that, I feel like date someone and they're queer, like a guy, he would definitely have to be more, he would have to gravitate more towards women, like wanting to like sexually attracted to women than men. It would have to be something like, oh, I went through a phase or whatever, or like, I am attracted to both genders, but I resonate more with females. That's kind of, I think, how it would work. Um, and he would have to be just like anyone else in a heterosexual relationship. You'd have to be committed and say, I'm not going to ever cheat or whatever. Because I feel like one thing I have learned is from working with a coworker, my first job actually, he was he was gay and he was very open about it. And he's like, he wasn't flamboyantly gay. He made it very clear, like he wasn't like he basically like he liked straight men basically, and he didn't like literally he crushed on straight men, and that's who he preferred. He preferred, and he wished that guy, he wasn't into the whole like drag thing, and dressing as like a woman or doing makeup and stuff like that. He was very like, you would never think he was gay ever. And I'll never forget, and this is where my reservations come with this. He said that men that are, and also too in Miami, and the Miami community, the gay community, especially for men, they're very like, if you go down Ocean Drive, there's a club, I forgot what it's called. It's right on Ocean Drive, but it gets packed, and it's for men and women that are gay, and rightly so. Like, just like anyone who goes to a club, there should be a club, whatever. But he said that he never ever would venture there or do that, because he said there's like literally they go in the bathroom and men will be like, hey, I want to you, and they'll have blowjobs, or like they'll be like what they're called glory holes, and then you won't even see the face of someone. You'll just see their you know different bits, the man bits, but the larger part of the man bits, and they'll literally have sex. So he said that he wasn't into that. So my perspective on that's where I kind of get nervous about, like, would a man fall in love with another man? Um, what if he becomes sexually dissatisfied with me and he wants to bring in a third party, and that person's a man, and then I watch my boyfriend have sex with a man? That would be hard to, that was gonna sound bad. I was gonna say hard to swallow. Um, so yeah, I think, I do have my reservations about it. Um, Not to say it wouldn't work, but there would have to be a lot of honest, open communication, And then there comes, what about porn? Let's say, because some couples, they do watch porn together. Let's be honest. Let's talk about it. There's people who do watch porn to keep their sex life spicy and whatever, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's not like in excess. You do it in moderation. But what if he wants to watch gay porn, and I don't really want to watch that because I'm not going to be turned on by that? Those are the things that I kind of, and again, nothing wrong with that, because that's what someone's attracted to. But there would have to be a lot of honest, open communication. Like, hey, this is whatever. this is how I go about it. I'm not super promiscuous. I'm not going to seek out sex from a man. I just, I happen, if they say I happen to be, attracted to both sexes. And that's it. That's what it would have to be like. But I wish, I don't know if anyone's like going to actually watch this, but it would be interesting to hear other people's perspectives on it. And if they've dated, because like literally the guy I matched with recently, he said that he's dated girls that were bi. So even for them, like, think about a guy that's straight. Would they date a girl, like on the flip side of it, would they date a girl who's queer or bi, right? Because there's men who do that. So it's just interesting. I will say that I think there's different customs or norms that come with that, whether it's on a woman's side or a man's side. But this is my perspective coming as a straight female talking about dating men that might be queer. So don't take me as an authority on it. I'm just giving my 2 cents about it and my experience, because again, imagine it like peer-to-peer support. And maybe in your family, it's not even like welcomed. Maybe in your family, it's like, like talking about homosexuality is like no, like a vampire to garlic, like no, you know. Um, so yeah, take what you will from that. I just wanted to shed light on that because I feel like it's something that I've kind of been coming across lately, and it's frustrating, especially if you're like an intuitive reader like me. I know I only do a few videos. I know there's some channels that are strictly and solely dedicated to tarot, oracle, whatever. I didn't want it to be that because that's just like one part of my life. There's a lot more to me than just like spirituality and card reading. But it is harder, I will say, when you are someone who's able. I'm like a human lie detector. So I like to think that in another life, I was either a forensic investigator or forensic psychologist, because I can see through people's bullshit. So it makes it it makes it hard for dating when you're going at it and you're like, oh, I'm ready, world, and then I'm ready, and you go in with an open heart and you're smiling and you're chipper and you're like, yes, let's do this, and then you slowly start to go and you see the pictures and you're like, ah, you're like, no, you're like, help me, God, save me. I will say though, I do feel like I've been very blessed, and I think that spiritual discernment, that intuition is there for a reason. And if I didn't heed that, I would be in situations where my safety could be compromised. Not just my physical safety, but my psychological safety, because that's a thing. Psychological safety and emotional safety is a thing. That's why in certain in certain experiments and stuff like that, they literally ask you, you have to get people's consent beforehand. Like you have to say, hey, these are the possible risks and implications, and then if you know that, that's why it's called informed consent. Same thing like when you get a surgery at a hospital, you sign off, you're like, these are the possible risks if you go under anesthesia, blah blah blah, right? So yeah. But if you're someone who has had a successful queer, like if you're straight and you've dated, like let's say if you're a dude and I don't know if you're a dude watching this, if you are, thank you for watching. um if you're single and you like to mingle and you're normal and you're not a cheater, let me know, um but yeah, so that's my 2 cents on it. Not frowning down upon it, it's just that I think there needs to be a certain level of vulnerability, accountability, and authenticity to make it work, because I could very much foresee, if both people are not on the same page, a guy, let's say he gets bored with, like, let's say I did that and the guy gets bored and he's like, I want to have sex with a man one day, and I'm in a committed relationship with him. We're going strong. Maybe I even got engaged or married to him. And then one day he's like, hey, there's a really cute guy that I work with and I want to see where that goes. And then boop, I'm out of the loop. And I'm like, damn it, I saw that coming. So, hi, Bibber. I would rather prevent that altogether. And that's why I'd rather date straight, you know. But I still say love is love. I don't frown down upon people that want to date people of the same sex, because that's just, love is love. So for me, I don't really, I don't see myself falling in love with a woman. I want to date a man. So, and if you're a woman and if you're gay or bi or whatever, then again, you do you. And I don't know if my words will apply to you, but you can imagine, we'll take them, and I think you can apply it to your situation, however that looks like. Because I think authenticity, integrity, honesty, those are all things that are universally applicable no matter what your gender is, right? It's not like, oh, it's only for, no, it goes by anything, you know? You want to be open and honest in your relationship with people. You want to demonstrate integrity, right? Because if, let's face it, if you don't want to walk this earth alone, right? If you want a companion to go about life with, you owe it to yourself. And if you want them to stick around, you owe it to yourself to be honest with them. Because let me tell you, you lie to somebody, they will never forget that. And you might be someone, and if here's my thing, like with me, I'm someone who's very forgiving. Like for the most part, I've thought about it, and I did a video, was it yesterday or today, about forgiveness? Like, is it necessary to heal? I will say that, like, I do give people chances. Like, I'm the kind of person that if you do it once, whatever, twice, three times, you're out. Three strikes, you're out. But I will often give people chances, and I'm learning to kind of be a little bit more discerning, because I learned that if you go back to someone after they tricked you or they hurt you, the likelihood or possibility that they'll do it again is very high, unless they've done the inner healing and the shadow work and gained immense wisdom and maturity in a short amount of time. So yeah, just be mindful, you know, who you talk to. I think communication is key for anything, for any successful relationship, whether it be work, family, love. You have to communicate. Like, that's how are you going to get anything resolved, right? You have to communicate. How are you going to establish boundaries with somebody? You have to communicate. So yeah, hope that helps somebody. Um, and happy dating, I guess. And it'll be interesting if I ever do, if I ever actually do match with anybody and it goes well and I talk to them longer than a week, I will be sure to I will be sure to document my experience. Um, and yeah, because life is a journey, and you know, you live and you learn, and it's interesting. So if you have an experience that you feel like you want to share and you're like, ooh, I have to, you know, please do. Because I'm an avid seeker of knowledge. I consider myself a lifelong student. I love to learn. So, and I've learned that I learn from other people's experiences, right? I don't just take my own and adopt that as, I don't generalize my viewpoint or my worldview as the sole, you know, like, oh, everyone. I used to be like that, where I used to think, oh, I was right and I knew this and that and I was virtuous, so therefore, you know, I'm on a pedestal. That's not true. There's so many people who out there who are different than me, and you know, they live different lifestyles, and they have a wealth or a plethora of knowledge that I would just love to sit in a room and just listen to them like speak, because I could just learn so much from them. So, you know, yeah. But when it comes to queer dating straight, if you're a woman and you're whatever and you're straight and you're dating a queer person, like, I do think you owe it to yourself. If you're gonna do that, make sure that they're gonna be honest with you, because I could foresee some things happening where you can run into roadblocks. And if you're someone, you're like, oh, but just to remedy that, have it be like open, or have them be like a like whatever, like a whatever, like an open, you know, ethically non-monogamous relationship. Just be mindful, because hearts can break. Because what if one person, you have your one person, right, your main person, your main squeeze, your main beau, and then that person has these other people, right? You may get left out of the equation, because what may happen, and this will be probably another video for another day, what I foresee happening is, when you're in a polyamorous relationship or that's ethically non-monogamous, even if you think you're the main boo or the main squeeze or whatever, that person, there are such thing as, and if you think, oh, it's just sex, no, 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 no. That person will have an emotional affair, boo boo. Trust me. And then when you end up going, you get divorced, and that person's spending more time with that other person, the second person or the third person, you're going to be like, but why? But they loved me first. And you're going to be like, well, you let them go and sow their oats, so it's not their fault. You both agreed upon this a mutual ethically open relationship, that's why to me, I don't feel like it could work. Um, and I will say the ones that do it are probably more sexually adventurous and a lot more kinky, to be honest, right? Because they're going to be the people that are like, instead of having them be separate, exclusive relationships, they're going to want the threesomes. They're going to want the group sex, right? They're going to be people who are more prone to sexually deviant behavior. And I don't want to say deviant to put down like group sex, but traditionally, in my opinion, sex is for two people. That's the way God created it to be. That's just my opinion. You may differ from me, but that's just the way, not to bring religion to it, but that's just the way, And when you talk about, like, when you think about it, right, in Roman times, when they threw the slaves to, like, in the Colosseum and stuff, basically they were, like, engaging, like, there were orgies. I know there's a show called Sparta or something, and they were literally, there was group orgies going on. So, and that, to me, that kind of stuff borders on, like, I don't say Satanism, but it borders on pretty provocative stuff. And to me, when you have sex with somebody, the whole reason, when you think about it, we have sex is to procreate, right? So that's just my 2 cents about it. And you're gonna be like, oh my God, she's so conservative, but she's also liberal. Like, she doesn't know what she is. No, I'm just a person. And I fall in the middle anyways, but I take both. I listen objectively, and then I form my own objective conclusions on those facts. But yeah, so just be mindful of that, and don't get mad if your partner, if you're like in this kind of a situation where you're like, oh, it's open and she's queer or he's queer, whatever. Be mindful, because if that person, and if you're like, oh, but then they join into sex or whatever, hey, you do you, but just one person, there's a good movie, I think, but they weren't, I don't know if they were gay. It's called Challengers. It's with Mike Feist, and I think Josh O'Connor, and Zendaya was the main, protagonist female character, and Mike Feist, and there's a moment where Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, they end up like making out with each other, and they didn't even realize it, and she's sitting back like watching, like, oh, I knew it. They had a thing for each other. So it's like, just be, and mind you, here's the crazy part, because of that, the dynamics, it was basically almost like a triangle, love triangle. Because of that, they actually, the two friends, the male friends, they actually stopped talking to each other. They were like best friend tennis players. They stopped talking to each other. Not to say that there was like an open thing, but it was a very, like, not to say that may the best man win, but they kind of all shared each other in a sense. If you've never seen the movie Challengers, go watch it. But I think, I don't know, it kind of gave the vibes of like a threesome kind of situation. So, not really my thing. I'm not really into that. But some people do that. I'm not gonna, your sex life is your sex life. But to me, I look at it like sex is between two people, and it's basically another form or expression of, I would say love, but pleasure, admiration, attraction between two people. And that's the way I think it needs to be. And because of certain apps like Tinder, and mind you, and I'm on Tinder, so, but I try to be responsible and mature about it. Even though it's notorious for being a hookup app, but just be mindful, like, if you want to be someone who's cosmically conscious and a responsible adult, be honest with your partner, especially whether it's about your sexual preferences and this and that, because, if you're someone that wants a satisfying long-term relationship with somebody, a majority, I think, of people do want that. They're looking for that life partner. Then I think we owe it to ourselves to be forthright and honest with the people that we're connecting with, because if you respect yourself and if you respect them, then you're gonna, this mutual understanding between both parties will lead to, I'm speaking so technical in terms of, like, sounds like I'm talking about a job. It's going to lead to more productivity and better results. But it's true, though. You're going to have a more satisfying, rewarding, fulfilling. Granted, I don't know the inner workings of, like, Matt Damon and his wife's relationship, but you never hear anything about these people. You never hear anything about Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes. They keep their lives private. You don't hear them talking about, like, oh my God, we do this sex position every night, and it's, like, you don't hear people doing that. So, I think there needs to be a certain level of privacy and not every time I say this, I sound like Finding Nemo when he goes anonymity. I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. There needs to be that, because that, I think, is what's going to lend itself to being a stronger, more satisfying relationship and partnership. And if you are somebody that you like polyamory and if you are queer, please be honest. For people like me who are searching, who not searching, but who are trying to attract a steady, strong partnership, please save us the trouble of you coming into like the dating space and the dating world and trying to, you know, cause more grief and waste our time. Because there are people and men like me, I'm not a man, I'm saying like there's other people like me, men and women, who genuinely want to date with intention, who go on dating apps to try to find their a partner, or, you know, at least even maybe so start off casual where it's just like, you know, maybe more, I'd say sexually inclined, but more physically based and looser boundaries, right? And then you want to have it transform or migrate into something more long term and permanent and serious, you know, because I'm kind of going about it that approach, honestly. Because right off the bat, when you're like, oh, when you date someone and it's like you sit across from them, it literally becomes like an interview, and I'm not into that at all. So, but please be honest, you know, especially for like with people who lead a virtuous life, and they're you know, they treat people with respect. You, whoever you are, if you're someone that, you, not saying you don't have your shit together, but if you are not emotionally mature and you lack integrity and you have narcissistic tendencies, not to say you lack the self-awareness to even know that you have narcissism, but if you know, you know, I will say this, men know, or women know, when they lie to someone, they know, right? If it goes against who they truly are, they know that they're lying to someone. That's why I will never do that to anyone. I will never lie to anybody. That's why if I don't like you, I either delete you or I distance myself from you, or I'll be very candid and say, hey, I'm not attracted to you, or I start talking to someone else. That's the way I go about it. So please, for the love of God, if you're someone who doesn't know what you want, and if you're attracted to both sexes, and also on the flip side, this is the last thing I want to end with. I think also sometimes, let's say if you're a guy, and again, if you're watching this and you're a dude, this is more geared towards women, right? Women helping other women. But unless I start a different channel about the female perspective and how men can date better or whatever. On the other side of it, you could wonder and think, oh, but if someone's bi, if a guy is bi and he knows that a woman is straight and he's attracted to her, and he knows that like she wouldn't date him if she knew that he was bi. I get where some people would come from, and I get why a man would maybe reluctant or say apprehensive to disclose that to a woman, because they're like, oh, if I say that I'm bi, then the girl's gonna run away, you know, and I might really like her, but you know, I know that she's pretty staunch in her ways and like conservative in that sense, so I'm not gonna share that about myself. Please let me, like, you'll get like major brownie points having the courage and bravery to say, hey, I'm this way, versus being dishonest, getting into a partnership, possibly talking about intimacy and things like that, maybe even being intimate. You develop an attachment for each other, and if she's like me and she's without cards or not, because women, I'll be honest, I think a lot of women, they have the maternal instinct and we have a sixth sense. Men do too, but women, the female brain, I think honestly, I feel like sometimes we're wired differently, and we have this like sixth sense of this keen sense of intuition and discernment that like kind of goes untalked about or unspoken, you know. And a female, we will catch on very easily, with or without oracle cards or not. So if you're somebody, and if you're not a jerk and you're like, but I'm too scared to like, because I thought about that too, and I go, oh, what if a guy was scared to share with me that he was bi or something because he thought I would run off? Let me tell you, I ran off more oftentimes than not because I found out that he lied. So if you're someone, let's say if you're a dude, or if you're a woman who knows a man that's going through this, help encourage your friend to be authentic, step in their authenticity, be accountable, be vulnerable. Because that woman, if because there's men who really are bisexual and they love women, like they will, like there was a celebrity who was a musician who I listened to. I'm not gonna say his, well, I don't know. I mean, he did say something where his I don't know if his wife was of Native American descent, but they were very into like Native American tribal spirituality stuff, and she basically told him, you have two spirits. You have your heart wasn't just set to be on to be with one gender. You're a man of all people. Like basically they took this really spiritual approach to it, right? And they're married. I don't know if they have kids, but he's a very well-known artist and I have much respect for that, right? And so I think it could work if both parties are honest and upfront. But if any man is dishonest, it'll never work out. Because why? That relationship is going to be based on secrets and lies. And no relation, let me just, I'm not a relationship expert, but no relationship can survive or thrive on deceit, dishonesty, and infidelity. Nothing. I don't care if you are non-monogamous swinger extraordinary, papi chulo, gigolo, you know, whatever, exotic dancer, Maximilian, whatever, from whatever club. No relationship will work if it's built on deception, dishonesty, or infidelity, because someone will check out mentally. So if you say, oh, but it's okay if like, oh, if I don't disclose that part of my life because I don't want my future wife to know that about me. If that woman is anything like me, she's going to run for the hills, because she's going to say, I'm not going to tolerate that. Because here's what happens. If you want to take a macro perspective, and then I'm going to stop this. Once it gets to 1 minute, not 1 minute, 1 hour and 30, I'm going to, that's a long time to do something. To sit there in a computer and talk about this topic, but it's a big topic. If you're somebody that you eventually want to have children, the family unit is the first form of socialization. So what happens is that we learn by observation, right? So if you have children, right, let's say this does happen where a straight woman dates a gender queer man, right? Or a bisexual man, or vice versa. A straight man dates a bisexual woman, whatever. That if you have children, your values, your belief systems, all of that is going to get disseminated down and distributed down to your children, your offspring, right? Because that's what they're going to learn from. So if they see mommy and daddy and they know, they sense, because children are very intuitive too, and they sense, oh, but daddy's, you know, you're later on down the line, you're in this marriage, right? And how many marriages, you think about it, when they get together, the woman marries the guy, but he's actually is gay later on. Something flips and he's like, you know what? I don't like women anymore. I don't like vaginas. I've always been attracted to men. I love men. And that's okay. But think of all the time that a woman spent or wasted being in a marriage with someone who, if they were upfront about their sexuality from the beginning, right? How much time they could have had cultivating a relationship with someone who would have been their divine spouse or their partner, right? So because you think about it, how many marriages break up down the line where the guy goes, let's say they're in their 60s or 50s or 40s and the guy goes, hey, you know what? And he starts, and this is where it gets wonky, and this is why I go, for me as a straight woman dating someone who could be bisexual, if there's no honest open communication, it could get weird, because later on down the line preferences could change. Some people fall out of love. Some people are married for years. I've literally, one of my she was my friend actually in Miami. This was when I was a little girl. I was younger. I considered her my best friend. I don't know if the father was gay or not, but all I know is that her mother and father were in a very strong, committed relationship. And one day, he walked into the kitchen and he told my friend's mom, I don't love you anymore. Point blank, that was it. He said, I'm moving out. I want a divorce. It devastated, again, I don't know if he was gay, but it devastated my friend's mom. And it affected my friend too. My friend almost turned like berserk. Like she completely changed. She became a totally different person. I think she was kind of developed a little bit of like mental illness. And it had a drastic effect. And that's why I say your partnerships, the family unit, is marriage and all that, is so important about who you choose to partner up with, because it's going to affect somebody. If you have children, it'll affect everybody, all parties involved. And I'm such a big proponent on children and youth advocacy, because I've seen too many children come from broken homes, or were a result or byproduct of divorce, and then they take that upon themselves because the child feels guilty that their parents aren't together, and then they have to choose a side. And I had to be the one, I was the the active listener in the form of support for them, even as like a patient in the hospital. But that's what ultimately, that's what this comes down to, is that if you are not honest and you don't communicate openly and honestly, you could be liable, especially as me, having it down the line where a partner says, hey, I'm not really interested anymore, or can we add a third person, can we, I want to have an open relationship, and they fall in love with a man, because that's what happens. That literally happens. And that's not, I don't want to be part of that statistic. So and now there are, on the same token, there are some women who decide to stay married to men that they know are gay or bi, because they love them. Because, right, if you get in a partnership and you've lived with someone for 30 years, you love that person, right? A really good, there's a movie, oh my God, what is it? It's with Eddie Redmayne. It's with Eddie Redmayne and another actress. Oh my God, was it not Daisy Ridley? Felicity Jones? I don't remember, but basically, they're married, but then he starts to identify as a trans woman, right? And she still loves him, but she lets him carry on his life as a trans woman. There's another movie with Cole Porter. Cole Porter, I watched recently. There was a documentary where he fell in love with the woman, right? They got married, but she knew about his escapades with men, and she was okay with it. There's some people who do that. My thing is, if you want to have a fulfilling, long-lasting relationship, and this is where we talk about psychology and gender roles and self-discovery, if we as human beings do the inner healing and do the work where we choose to step into our authenticity, whatever that looks like, right? And it may not be in terms of gender roles, right? It could be in terms of, I don't know, like what's a good I don't know, let's say, like, I'm just trying to think of a good, like, stepping into your authenticity. Like, okay, like, I'll just use me. I don't know if it was a great example. I wanted to use another example. Someone who comes from a specific heritage, right? Or, like, let's say they were raised, okay, well, we'll talk about Catholicism, right? Let's say you were raised Catholic, but you identify more as Buddhist. Or let's say, how about this? Let's even mix it up even more. Let's say you're Jewish, man or woman, and you identify as Buddhist, or with Taoism, and your family is very, very, you go to synagogue, you honor the Sabbath, um, everything. You had your bat mitzvah, your bar mitzvah, and you're like, hey, this doesn't jive with my vibe anymore. I want to be a Buddhist monk. Or I shouldn't laugh when I say that, but I'm saying something that seems very avant-garde for what, like, a traditional Jewish family, right? Stepping into your authenticity would be being had the courage and bravery to tell your family, hey. And also, I think in Jewish culture too, they want you to marry. I think you can't marry someone, like, if let's say I marry, like, there's a guy that, let's say, who's Jewish and he likes me, and his parents are very traditional, and he wants to date me, I'd be considered a shiksa, which is basically like, when I'm not Jewish, I'm non-Jewish faith. So even though I respect Judaism and Judeo-Christian values or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what I mean. But stepping into your authenticity would be challenging those people who are your parents, right, your family, and saying, hey, I don't really resonate with this anymore. I was raised this way, but I identify as Buddhist or maybe Hindu. I don't know. You know, maybe you're a Jewish man, you want to marry an Indian woman, and your family is like, nope, we're going to have the huppah and you're going to step on the glass and that's it. And, you know, you're not going to wear so in Indian culture, they wear a sari, SARI, and they have the little red dot. They do the henna tattoos and whatnot when you get married. So it's like that stepping into authenticity would be challenging those cultural beliefs and things and norms that you grew up with, right? So, but in the same token, when it applies to gender norms and things like that, stepping into your authenticity, if you're a male and if you're watching this, you would have the courage and bravery to be like, hey, you tell your partner, if you tell someone, if you really like somebody and they're a woman, you say, hey, I like you, but I do identify as whatever, da, 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 da. And if that woman, if she likes you back, she'll be accepting of it. And if she doesn't, that doesn't say anything about you. It doesn't depreciate your value as a person. It just means that that person is not the right person for you. And there will be another person who will be. But for all of us, for me, as a woman speaking as someone who identifies as straight and, is trying to date intentionally and find someone who matches her or my personality and my beliefs and things like that, and find commonalities with someone, it'll be hard with someone who already right off the bat is presenting themselves as something that they're not. So that's lacking authenticity. And as women, let me tell you, as women, we will pick up on that. So not that a man's going to watch this, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. And it's been something that's kind of been weighing on me a little bit, because I'm like, it's like I said, it's frustrating because I've had really good, sometimes the sex, I'll be honest, sometimes the sex with the people that I've suspected might have been like queer or whatnot. Bro, whoa. Like sometimes